speakers wishing to address the board?
Representative Bruno, there are no speakers.
Seeing as there are none, kind of speak slowly. We're calling the meeting closed for closed session at 5:05. We reconvene at 6:15.
Yeah, we still have the sign up, you know what I mean? Haven't.
You're the second person. Like you can see out, but no one can send me like where you.
All right, everyone.
Okay, that just came up yesterday. I never heard about
These days. We're going to reconvene closed at 6:20. Begin our open session with a flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You. We have a report from closed. The board has voted 5-0 unanimously to provide the superintendent with a satisfactory evaluation. For the superintendent's contract, he shall receive a 3% base salary increase for the 25-26 school year to commence on July 1st, 2025. Congratulations. Hello. Item number 7, approval of the agenda and consent agenda. Any changes, questions?
No changes.
Right. I have a motion to approve the agenda, the consent agenda.
Move to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
Trustee Finn.
I second.
Trustee Day. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Being as there are none, the consent agenda is approved.
And President Bruno, just a quick announcement.
Yeah.
I want to just recognize that on tonight's personnel report, we had kind of 2 unique items. One is the resignation of Principal Donovan from Central Elementary School as principal. Really excited for Chuck and his family. They have the opportunity. His wife received a position in St. Louis as an epidemiologist. So great opportunity for their family. And that means that Chuck is moving to St. Louis. So he's worked really hard at Central, coming out of the pandemic, supporting staff, supporting students in the feedback from the community. They celebrated his achievements, recognized his connection with the kiddos and the staff. And we're hoping that we would find somebody just like him. And so I wish Chuck all the best in his endeavors. And I know he'll be back to visit us and keep checking in. But I wish him and his family all the best. And as a segue on the same agenda, we actually have the approval of the new principal at Central, Catherine Ingham Waters. Really pleased that she's joining us tonight. Catherine, why don't you come on up? I think we found that warm connector who will continue to lead Central to success. Catherine comes to us with over 20 years of experience in public education, including 8 years as an elementary principal. She has a little bit of HR background for the school district and city thrown in there as well. In her leadership, she's rooted in strong instructional practice, inclusive school culture, and authentic family engagement. That really came through in her interviews. She began her career as an elementary classroom teacher. I think probably some of her old colleagues are joining us tonight. They're waving in the
Not
back.
old colleagues. Young.
That'd be stricken on the record.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that just really aligns with Central's values, strengths, and opportunities. She's known as a warm, collaborative, thoughtful leader. We had lunch yesterday, and that was absolutely the case. I got to know her a little bit better. And I will say that she was the unanimous choice in both of our panels. And I'm just really excited to have her join our team. She'll be working collaboratively with Chuck. over the next couple weeks. Although she doesn't really start until July, we've already been inviting her to things and bringing her in, and she was just by Ching Pei's office. So just a super warm welcome to Catherine. I know she's going to be fantastic as the next leader at Central. So glad to have you.
Thank you for the warm welcome. It's my privilege to serve Central Elementary as the next principal. The site and the district has extended such a warm welcome to me, and I am just thrilled to be able to bring my past experience and my skills and abilities to continue that positive momentum moving forward, to align to the district's mission and vision, of course, overseen by the board. So thank you for the very warm welcome.
Welcome.
All right, pause will work it. Yeah. Item number 8, speakers wishing to address the board. Board appreciates and supports stakeholders' input in our meetings. Engagement by members of the public in civic matters is a cornerstone of our democracy. The board has established guidelines for its meetings so that we're able to conduct the meeting effectively and efficiently. Within those guidelines, members of the public have the opportunity to address the board. To submit a question or comment, speakers are asked to complete a speaker card by the start of open session at 6:15 p.m. If you have not done so already, you may see Ms. Ellinger for a speaker card at this time. During the meeting, speakers will be called upon to make their comment. If you are addressing the board on an agenda item, we will call you to provide your comment before the board discusses that item on the agenda. If you're addressing the board on a non-agenda item, we will take those comments at this time. Please be aware that provisions of the Brown Act prohibit the board from acting on or discussing non-agenda item matters at this meeting. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person per topic. I will add, if you go beyond 3 minutes, we'll have the time on the board. I may have to interrupt you. Know that I do so with love and respect. Oh yeah, we've got to keep moving. Ms. Ellinger, are there speakers wishing to address the board?
President Bruno, yes, there is one. Victor Ward, like to come on up.
Right back up there. There you go.
Evening board, superintendent. My name is Victor. I'm here. My company has a couple of video products that we think are perfect for schools. I only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to talk about the one which is something we call Real Time, which is a video yearbook. It works off the principle that if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a 1 minute video is worth about 2,000 pictures. And it's not meant to replace the traditional yearbook because that's awesome, you know, nostalgia, and it's just a fantastic thing to capture memories. But there are a lot of things that are not done justice by just a picture book. All your visual and performing arts, your plays, your musicals, any kind of rally, any kind of sporting event. And this is the year 2025. But oftentimes we're asking students to work with tools from 1925. And so in honor of kind of reminiscing about the past, I brought a few things. One of the things that I brought is the Polaroid camera. Now, even this one is a little bit old for me. I remember the ones where the picture would come out the front. This is a Polaroid camera where the picture comes out the side. Got that off of eBay. The relic of relics is the rotary phone.
Wow.
Also off of eBay. I had one in my house, grew up, you know.
I have one in my office.
So of course, you know, we laugh at these things. We don't use these things anymore because technology has passed them by. And I know there's that tension with technology and phones and schools. And I was a teacher once, and when I was a teacher, we just had dumb phones. And you didn't want a dumb phone in the class, so you clearly don't want a smartphone in the class. So this is not, you know, keep phones out of the schooling hours, but use the technology. Things, multimodal learning and digital learning can really enhance a student's enjoyment of school, their engagement with the material. And so, again, I just wanted to come, introduce myself, mention my company, and hopefully maybe meet with someone, and you or anyone on your staff at some point, maybe sometime in the future. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Ledger?
There are no more speakers.
All right. Thank you for that. On to our Board of Trustees report. Would anyone like to get us started?
I can go.
Okay.
So this last month, but a month. So many things have happened. I think the one real big highlight was the promotions for both Sandpiper and Ralston that I was able to attend. And it's just such a joy to be able to see the students as they reach that next step and next level in their education. And the student speakers in particular were a joy and a highlight, playing pranks on the audience and other such fun things. So thank you so much. I appreciated the opportunity to go and be a part of that and make sure that the kids all looked at the camera for their photograph. So that's all I got. There's a lot.
For sure.
End of the year is a lot. So it was great.
Well, I'll piggyback because I also had the honor of being able to attend some of the stepping up on graduation ceremonies in Nesbitt. I attended the 5th grade and the 8th grade. It was very emotional. The 5th grade, because my son is a 5th grader, now rising 6th grader. And so that was great to be a part of that. But I really want to commend. It's amazing when you sit there and you commend the teachers, the administrators, the staff, especially the parents of not only the 3rd graders, I mean the 5th graders and the 8th graders, but really I kind of like every grade is interesting, right? And whatever step up you're doing, you know, they should all be proud and of the support that they gave their kids and the support that they receive from the schools. And so I just want to thank everybody for another successful year. And again, lovely speakers and really poignant words being said at these ceremonies. So just want to give my thanks to all those involved and especially the parents of all those stepping up and moving to the next phase.
Thank you.
I know I go first and I was not prepared. So my apologies. I like totally been forgotten. I was like, what is he talking about? Trustee reports. Why is everyone looking at me? But I did, however, have the opportunity to go to Redwood Shores Elementary. They did a little concert for the parents. So it's the TK classes got together. It was incredibly cute because, you know, these are 4 and 5-year-olds and doing songs and motions and anyway, just a great opportunity to see, you know, the kids all together before the school year ended. So that was a nice treat. Thank you.
I was not able to attend any of the stepping ups, unfortunately. I attended Carl Mont's graduation because my child was graduating.
There you go.
But as my colleagues have mentioned, it was really inspiring to hear the students who are graduating from high school and especially knowing that many of the Carl Mont graduates are also BRSSD graduates. It was heartwarming to be able to see them as they leave their TK through 12 education and move on to the next step in their lives.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, congrats. Thank you. Mine is relatively short as well. I'm excited for rest. I'm excited for everybody else's excitement. Happy Pride Month. Let me make sure, get my recognitions out of the way. I didn't attend as well any of the promotions, but I also have been high school ones and spoken of many others. And I've also, including these board meetings, been part of my fair share of watching people resign, retire, get hired, high five, and about to begin their first real fiscal year. Right. So I'm kind of excited with no shade to put this year kind of behind, relax for a bit, start over. I hope all of our teachers and families and students have an amazing break, and administrators and superintendents So I'm looking forward to what people even feel about that. Especially on the backdrop of things that may not be a choice in the world. So it's been a great kind of 4 weeks within the last meeting of excitement.
Yeah. That's the end of our board report. Superintendent.
I'll just echo. It was a great end to the school year. All of the celebrations, all of the performances, all of the student activities, all of those culminating kind of activities across all of our schools was really nice to see, and really excited that everybody's eager, right, for a restful summer ahead. I do want to just take a moment to really recognize the district office. My colleagues at the district office actually are shifting into high gear. Reese and Ching Pei have been working on budget and LCAP. Those are two of the biggest things of the year, which are on our agenda tonight. Julie has been in full swing with hiring, making sure that we're going to be fully staffed when our kids come on board. Jerome making sure all of our tech is just so, and security systems and everything, even a little techy, falls under Jerome. And I do want to recognize a couple of folks, supporting folks. Annie and Jill have been really the leaders in our transition of financial systems and ERP and everything with the county. It's a huge undertaking, and I think that often doesn't go recognized with how much goes into it. They're the ones that are making sure that we're all going to get paychecks in the new year. So confident we are. They have done amazing work, but it's not easy. And I just call out Jenny as well. Came on board, making sure that ESY, or extended school year, got off on the right foot. My weeks blend together. Today was day two. Day one. Sorry, it feels like day two. Day two with staff, right? So just lots of stuff. A great end to the year, and we're already moving forward with future work. So just it's a really good place to be. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 11, reading difficulty risk screener adoption. Here from Assistant Superintendent Ching Pei.
How's everyone doing? Ready? Yeah, good. I am joined tonight by Teresa Thompson, who is currently a first grade teacher at Fox, formerly a reading specialist for us down at Redwood Shores and member of our reading difficulty risk screener committee. We had a group of teachers and specialists, reading specialists, kinder and first grade teachers participate to help us make the selection for our reading difficulty risk screener, the RDRS. I'm going to give you a little bit of background information before we go into the very specific. We'll talk to you about the process, make a recommendation, and then there's time for questions. Now, I think you're all pretty familiar with Senate Bill 114. This did come out of dyslexia advocacy. So people have often called the screener a dyslexia screener. We want to be really clear that it is not a diagnostic test. What we've been doing with FastBridge for the past couple of years in identifying early reading difficulty is in alignment with the screener. Whether you have dyslexia or not, the fact that we are screening early on for early intervention is what's important about the RDRS, looking for the very specific building blocks of reading. So I put the snapshot here for you as a reminder of the different components that we pay attention when we think about screening for students. We're looking for risks so that we can intervene early and provide the necessary instruction, and not say, oh, you have a difficulty. Therefore you're dyslexic. And that's not what it is at all.
Yeah, because reading difficulties is a big, it's a big umbrella. There's a lot of different things that can go into it.
So along with that, there are several considerations that were in play for us as an organization. You'll remember that BRSSD as a school district has been partnering with Stanford's
rapid online assessment of reading research team since 2019. This is Jason Yateman's research team out of the Dyslexia Center at Stanford as well. He does study dyslexia. He as a researcher and as a neuroscientist does focus on closing the gap for students. We have been a research partner with them to help them develop their tool. We in 23-24 adopted FastBridge district-wide as our screeners, primarily because it included all of the necessary components for looking for reading difficulties, including phonological awareness, phonological and phonemic awareness, knowledge of letter names, decoding, fluency, and comprehension. Depending on the grade levels, we screen for different skills because developmentally speaking, as you learn to read, you obviously by 4th grade should know your letter names. But as a beginning kindergartner, that is an indication of potentially not being ready to learn. FastBridge, unfortunately, was not approved by the state in December when the state reviewed all of the different options. I can't really tell you why. The only thing I can think of is maybe it wasn't fast enough to give in terms of screener, because iReady and NWA, for those of you who are kind of in the know, which most of you are the 3 big screeners across the nation. FastBridge, iReady, and NWA have for years been on the What Works Clearinghouse, have a body of research behind proving its efficacy and reliability, yet outside of California, in California, they're not approved, but outside of California, those are the top 3 metrics that are used in many states. So strangely, that's what was going on.
I can't put my finger on why it wasn't. It could be just I don't know if it was just the interfacing of FastBridge, which is something that teachers do have difficulties with sometimes, but other than that, as far as looking at those components, FastBridge is pretty great job.
Yeah, which is an important thing to keep in mind. What we have been assessing our students with is a good product. It is valid, it is reliable. So we're not in a bad spot because our program that we chose is not adopted by the state. The other thing that I wanted to share with you is that Roar, our research partner from Stanford, was indeed improved for 1st and 2nd grade, but for English only. We didn't participate with them in kindergarten, and I'm kind of like, oh shoot, we really should have provided them kindergartners for the validation data. They're continuing to work. And even though they did all of their validation with native Spanish speakers, the state of California didn't actually approve them for Spanish because their test case were native speakers out of Colombia, not native Spanish speakers in the state of California. So that's just why we're not going with the 2 that we had already chosen. For timeline, in February, we had brought all of our reading specialists and learning center specialists to the SMCOE Publishers Fair to hear about the 4 approved programs that we have to choose from the state of California. Coming out of that, our team who was there felt like it was really important that we grow this beyond just the specialists. And so hence Teresa joined us among with a handful of other teachers. We were recruiting the K2 teachers to participate in the selection process because the RDRS is a mandate for K2 students, native speakers and English learners alike. The committee met in April to first review all of the requirements of the law and understand what our local data say to determine what our needs were and what our gaps were so we can make a local decision. And then in May, we invited 3 of the 4 publishers to come meet with the team, share the program in more depth now that we had the context. And then based on what they saw,
We made it, that's why we're here. We have a decision for you guys to look at and decide if this is to adopt. So
it was a pretty unanimous
Yeah.
decision in May, which, and honestly, I've updated you a little bit along the way. The group went in opposite direction than I thought they were gonna go when we first met in February. And
there's a good reason for that. The group looked, because, again, we have still FastBridge, and the one we're looking at is very similar to FastBridge. It's, it's doing the same subtest. It's very similar. And teachers here in our district, we really like to use things in our classroom. So why do a screener that we just do and put it aside, the kids get screened, yay, done, check it off. Let's do something that we can actually use in our classrooms and to help those kids with reading difficulties. And and really address those needs. And so that's why we've chose the one we're going to present to you.
Yeah. So we went through what the School Boards Association sends us for every adoption process. Tools to look at our local data, to look at our demographics. A few of the key points I've highlighted here for you in the bullet points. I'm sure you've read the slides. You don't need me to read those to you, but really what we're looking at primarily is we have an existing system of assessing students. We have a curriculum that we know is going to need to be updated. And so we were nervous about layering on a different assessment at first, which was why in the updates, we thought maybe we would go in with outside retired teachers coming to do just that assessment for compliance sake. But in hearing about the different products, we are making a recommendation that we adopt M-Class by Amplify tonight because of all of the strengths it has and the fact that it addresses our changing demographics and our student needs. So M-Class is their new product. It is essentially Dibbles.
It's Dibbles, which has been around for years. I mean, I've been in education over 30 years. So I know Dibbles for 30 years. So I've used it before. So it's very similar to what we're doing already, where it's very similar to the FastBridge components.
Yeah. And the nice thing is the M-Class Lectura is also approved for Spanish. So for our native Spanish speakers, we have an option that is validated, that is part of the state approved list that we can choose to assess students with. I mean, Dibbles has been around for decades. It is nationally normed. The nice thing about, I think any of the assessments that were put forth, including FastBridge, are instantly scored on the computer. It's teacher administered, but computer scored. The best part about this is the fact that the lessons that are recommended as a result are easily accessible. I think we've probably heard from the teachers.
Yeah.
FastBridge tells you the gaps, which is great, but to get to the resources and to put together the interventions is
it's like 20 clicks, like as you're hunting and pecking. And even looking at some of the data that is put out by FastBridge, you're kind of hunting and pecking for the best data to be able to understand what your needs are. Where as we go on with the slides, you'll see in class, it's very clear. It's very user-friendly.
User-friendly would be the key, right? So the reports for the teachers and the parents is basically a one-stop shop, and there's no editing and there's no uploading needed. So M-Class does meet the basic requirements of the state mandate, plus gives you additional items that we could use if we wanted to. It is, as a universal screener, the goal is that we test all students within 5 to 7 minutes. It's supposed to be fast. There's it's a low bar for meeting risk thresholds, right? Because really we're trying to find the kids that are struggling the very most. So then we can take those most struggling students and add on additional metrics and get a little bit deeper on their needs. What's included with our purchase of Amplify is also the middle of year and end of year tests as well, which is why we ended up going this way. We had this concern of, okay, well, we have a great process by which we're looking at the 4 subtests, and the subtests change over the year because kids grow, and that's what we expect in the early reading years. But how do we match whatever RDRS we choose to the assessments that the teachers are giving? We don't want them to do both. That doesn't make sense. We don't want to take one away because then we can't monitor growth from fall to winter to spring. So
that's the key thing. We want to monitor growth from fall to spring and fall, winter, spring. And that's why M-Class was our overwhelming choice, is because it does monitor that growth, and we can continue to see where the kids, how they're growing and where they need to grow too. In fact, you look at a kid that might have a high composite score, but it might have a low score in, let's say, phonological awareness. Well, that is great because we can now focus on that one child to get their phonological awareness up, even though their composite score is high.
So you'll see that on the left-hand side of the table are the required screening elements from SB 114. Very familiar, completely similar to what we do in FastBridge. These are the M-Class tests that are within the suite that we are recommending that we adopt. And then you can see the matching grades. The SB 114 requirement is to screen every K through 2 students specifically for reading difficulty, because early intervention and early instruction is what is going to help a child, even if they are diagnosed as dyslexic, have the tools at an early age to be able to compensate. You'll see the product goes through sixth grade. We are currently recommending a wholesale change for K2, but not touching the 3-8 piece just yet, simply because we have a fully computerized system in 3-8. We are able to give all of these components and see our student growth. So we're going to start with K2 and then we're always open to growing. But for now, we're starting with the state requirement, and then this is the Spanish supplement for what matches in La Lectura. Now, what I said to you was that M-Class also gives additional optional screening tools as necessary. So we can do the rapid automatized naming, automatized naming, and the spelling tests. The RAN is, for those of you who have remembered the details from the Roar, is that game where you've got the knights and random, really fast words come up, and your job is to say, is this a real word or is this
Basically a nonsense word.
Nonsense word, and that's part of the rapid automatized. Why is that so hard for me to say? Or we can call it RAN because
Just ran, or just we can call it nonsense words. But and in Fastbridge, we actually in first grade we do test them in nonsense words. So we do ran already.
Yeah, those are additional pieces of identifying risk. I know it's a little bit controversial amongst some of our staff because it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm rushing children. But ultimately, if I don't have the fluency and the automaticity in certain components of reading, I will never be able to make meaning. So it's not about stressing children out, but it is about making sure we've given them enough repetition, enough explicit instruction, enough practice to be able to rapidly name upon sight for letters and sounds.
Yeah.
This is really where I wanted Teresa to share with you the benefits of M-Class from a teacher perspective.
Okay, so like I said before, the group was overwhelming, like we need to do this, simply because of how easy it is to determine your class level needs. You're looking at the benchmark skills, and you're looking at your whole class summary. And Fastbridge does do this for us for sure. But what we liked about it was like we called M-Class like Fastbridge 2.0, because it kind of gave us, like, you're looking at your class summary and you're like, oh my God, your composite. Well, I'm going to go into phonemic awareness, or actually let's go letter sounds. Letter sounds, you're well below. It tells you the percentage of your class at well below, but it also tells you have 4 students. So then you're like, okay, my whole class is not well below. Obviously, it's 18%, but it's only these 4 students. But then looking at the next level and the below benchmark, I have 5 students. So you're kind of looking at your percentages, and then you can be able to take as a teacher, do I need to teach this whole group? Do I need to teach this individually? Do I need to teach this in a small group? So it really just determines your educational needs in that classroom. It makes it a lot clearer to go, oh, I can probably do letter sounds whole group, because there's half my class needs help with that. And even though my less of my class doesn't, they can still benefit in that instruction as well. And then I can also take it and go, I'm going to do it individually with this one student, because the next slide shows you what the skills are with the student individually. So you can look letter sounds for Ali or for Samir he's well below. He's well below in everything, but anyway, but then you look at the next kid, he's just below. So like maybe he doesn't need individual, like a small group situation we find, where it looks like Samir might need other resources to be able to get over his reading difficulties. But what I liked and what the group liked was that how it shows it by the subtest. So I know I can take that student and just work on that one subtest and really work on that one, and then go on to the next one, and not doing it the whole group.
Yeah,
as well.
You can definitely get all of this information from our current
Totally
tool.
can, but this is so much clearer. I mean, for me, when I looked at it, I'm like, wow, because I've been using Fastbridge since pre-adoption, actually. And I'm like, oh my goodness, being able to go like, I have only 3 students in phonological awareness. I mean, that I need to be working, that's that above benchmark. I need to be working a little bit harder whole class. I just like to be able to take it and go, oh, whole class for this, individual group for that. And I think the teachers would definitely like seeing that a little bit more
The
clear as
click
well.
path is so much easier. You can find all this.
Find
information,
everything,
but-
you're not hunting and pecking. Reports,
Yeah.
again, the reports in FastBridge, they're a lot. It just depends on which one you want to use and how you understand it. FastBridge does a graph, but FastBridge only does a
It
composite.
takes 6 or 7 clicks to get to the information, whereas this one,
Yeah, this
when I
one's
click
like
on the student, it gives you everything in one spot.
one
So we're
spot.
talking about ease of use for our
Easy.
teachers.
And also just being able to bring it into a student's study team meeting. I'll be able to bring that and show the graph, like my child started here and now look at it at the end of the year, it's grown this much. So obviously you can see that the graphing, and this is only from phonemic awareness, it's a graph for each subtest. Where I believe, I don't know if I'm correct on this, but I know that there's a graph in FastBridge, but I think it's only on their composite. So it's not everything. It's just everything combined. So when I go and I explain to a parent, here's your child's graph on phonemic awareness, they're doing great. Here's your graph on comprehension, because I don't want to know if they can comprehend if they're not doing so great. So they can read and they're not comprehending. So being able to kind of tease out all the different subtests and be able to report on that to a parent is a gold mine as well.
I mean, like we keep saying over and over, we're given the same information, but in this new recommended tool, it's much cleaner. It is a very really quick access point for the teachers with icons that very simply are the actual lesson plan. So when you need the resource, you see the child's report, you see the instructional resource for progress monitoring, it's right there. There's not open this plan, read this lesson plan, click here, now go to this folder, and then download the materials and print, which is what turned everyone off. This is the difficulty we've been talking about with FastBridge. You get great data, but the instructional implications are really hard. And the teachers here loved the fact that the instructional support materials are a live link right there per student.
Yeah, my partner, that's her biggest concern is like, we have binders and binders of like FastBridge, like materials to use in our small groups. But she's like, but your class changes every year. So, you know, now I got to hunt through a binder to find what I need. But here, it breaks it up into, here's your groups and here are the kids that need to do this in your groups. Click it, print it, and you can teach it.
So you can. Well, it was very nice to help me put together these slides of how you can find the information about the students just within. You click and you get information. You'll see then when you click on that individual student, those are the lessons that are right there. And you have your whole class list on the left, color coded with all of their lesson plans, really easily accessible.
It gives you the verbiage. So you don't even have to think. Well, I mean, you do have to think, but yeah, I mean, it gives you the verbiage right there to say, pause, you support this.
So SB,
You're welcome.
SB 114 does provide us all with financial support in this implementation year, specifically for professional development. So what you will have seen in the contracts that were just a consent item, we have purchased professional development for next year. And in year 1, the licenses for access come free because the publishers are smart. If the state's giving you money for PD, we're going to sell you PD, and along with the PD, you get the materials. So that's that, if there's any confusion, is what's happening right there. Year 2's licenses are discounted. This will be a wholesale replacement for K2 team. We are going to offer an optional paid training in August for anybody who feels like they want to start right on day 1, getting to know their kids. I mean, nobody's assessing day 1. But the other option will be September 29th, which is actually quite a bit later. So if you'll remember a couple of years ago when we adopted FastBridge, we pushed back the very first benchmark due date until the end of October, so we could use the first learning day to train everybody to give the assessments and give them the month to actually administer the assessments. So our assessment window is going to be from the first day of school till a little bit longer this year to allow for folks to be trained and then be able to assess and start pulling groups.
Right, but I also feel like the training's going to be pretty seamless because we already have that FastBridge training. Being able to administer a subtest, it's going to be. I haven't really had a lot of chance to look at everything as far as the testing center, but it's very similar to what we're already doing. So that is going to be a relief to our K-2 teachers. I think it's just learning the nuances of a new program. As easy as it's going to be, but I think just learning that, I think it's going to be a faster transition.
Yeah, that was definitely a consideration, thinking about what is the lift for teachers, because this is a replacement There's not an add-on. We're not asking to assess more. We're doing the exact same types of subtests, because like I said, FastBridge does actually offer the same information. But because this gives us so much better usable information from the teacher standpoint, I think this is absolutely the right tool. I'm happy. Teresa asked me at the end, how do you feel about this? Adoption is different than we thought. I'm happy that the team is aligned in the recommendation. I think this is going to be a powerful tool for our teachers. It is a good product. So that's our recommendation for our compliant RDRS adoption. What questions can I answer?
I always have questions. Thank you, first off, thank you so much for taking the time to go through it in so much detail. I'm sure evaluating all of the various different systems must have taken a long time and a lot of effort on your part. So I appreciate you and the team. My question was around something that you said over and over again is that it's very easy to administer. And looking at my own first grader, right? 5 to 7 minutes to be able, like, I think it said it was 5 to 7 minutes to administer the whole thing. And like, how do you get that much information from just 5 to 7 minutes of whatever assessment it is? I feel like to get all those sub pieces
Yeah.
is a lot more than 5. Maybe I just don't know.
That's how we're doing it with FastBridge. It's the same amount of time. So each subtest is like about a minute of time to read. So let's say we take nonsense words. They get a minute to read those nonsense words as fast as they can. So then you're looking at how many can they read in that minute, and then that'll go into determination of what their score is. It doesn't seem like a lot, but with reading, if a kid isn't automatically decoding those words and they're still struggling with like going at and then bat, like if you can tell that that's not automatic enough, so then you can tell there might be some issues. It's either they're just a late bloomer or there could be a reading difficulty. So nothing for us to stress out about it until we do some more digging, do some interventions and see if this kid can not, it's just a late bloomer, or there might be something else going on. But 1 minute does kind of show you, it's like a snapshot. It just shows you exactly where you need to be working with those kids.
This goes back to the automaticity piece, right? It's not, here's a list, how long does it take you to read it all? We are specifically looking for the fluency metric. In 1 minute time, how many are you gonna get? And we're not making the kids like feel like, oh my gosh, if you only got 3, there's something, the world is falling down. It really truly is. We're gonna do a time, we're gonna set the timer. We don't make a big deal out of it, but that's how you get through it actually that quickly, because we are following the timer. We are following then the cut points that are nationally normed of what should a child who's been in school for this amount of time be able to solve quickly.
Solve quickly. And also too, like it changes, like the beginning of the year, 1 minute, you might only be able to do 3, but at the end of the year, we want them to be able to do 10. So it just kind of depends on where they are in the year. And so it sort of shows that growth. Yeah.
So it's based off of how that all was together.
Yeah.
So it seems like the decision to go with, or the recommendation to go with this particular system has to do a lot more with that user experience interface piece.
That, and I also feel like because we already we've already been trained in how to administer the tests. Yeah, the subtests, because they're all, I mean, there's so many assessments out there, they're all very similar. So, but as far as DIBELS is concerned, it's very much, FastBridge, I think, built it off with off the DIBELS now.
They're all built off of the science of reading and what we've known for decades about how kids learn to read. So even the science of reading is a new buzzword now. These people feel like there's a little bit of the pendulum swinging. For those of us who have been living this for 25, 30 years, these are the components for basic building blocks of reading. So of the 4 options that the state approved, they only approved 4 programs. Roar, we automatically disqualified because I'm not going to have a K screener different from my 1st and 2nd grade screener. That is just not feasible. And it was really hard to look our research team in the face and say, I'm really sorry. But the good news is they are funded out of the medical school. They are a research program. They're fine. The next option then would be UCSF's Multitudes, which is really similar because they are also a partnership. They partner with Jason and the Roar team. They are a research-based dyslexia research group out of UCSF. Their assessment only offered one option, was like a fall administration, which to us didn't make
You're
sense.
not looking at the whole child for the whole year.
Because if I can give the assessment anytime according to the compliance records, right? So if I assess a first grader in June, but use the October cut points, that's not telling me if they have reading risk or not, because now they're 6 months past that time window, which left two programs, Amira and MClass. Amira is wonderful and smart, but the entirety of the test is AI. The teachers never hear the students.
And that's not how our teachers operate. Like, we want to hear our kids. And that was the thing I had with Roar. I enjoyed doing the research. I enjoyed working with Stanford, but Roar was the kids did it on their own. I didn't hear them read to me. I didn't hear them say the word. I didn't hear them blend sounds. I just knew that they have trouble blending because of Roar. So I think another big reason why we chose this is because we're still doing those tests, and as teachers, we're hearing our kids and we're hearing what their needs are, and we're able to really get to the nitty-gritty of what those kids need and to help them in the classrooms.
Yeah. Quick administration, good research,
Yeah.
good instructional resources afterwards.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the logical best option. So that is basically it. And since this is up for adoption, I guess my recommendation, yeah.
And this is just out of curiosity, you had mentioned that you don't want to use this, you only want to use this for K through 2 for now. But I'm just curious, why is there even a different one? If the one for 3 through 8 is awesome and you don't want to change it, why not just use the same one for everyone?
Well, right now, the M-Class program is only available through 6th grade. We have a K-8 screener that we are currently using in Fastbridge. Fastbridge goes all the way through 8th grade. So we're hesitant to make a wholesale change for grades 3 through 8 without having involved any of our teachers in the conversation. The K2 team is knew that there was the RDRS coming. We're going through this process. We're going to be finding something, and there's a chance that we're going to make a change. So it would make sense to adopt for K2 on the state's timeline and then see how things go next year. We have these wonderful grade level release days where we are going to be sharing.
Yeah.
The teachers talk with each other. I mean, we're open to it potentially being a K5 adoption in the coming years, but until Amplify goes to grades 8 to 7, 8, which is in the works, but not there yet, it really doesn't make sense to say, oh, by the way, 6th graders of these 6-8 programs, you're going to use this K5, this elementary program, but 7, 8, you're still going to have a different piece of data. Because right now we can track the 3rd through 8th with their A reading and their CBM reading scores throughout their years and monitor their growth. And it is automated in the system. So
you're using Fastbridge for 3 through 8?
we're continuing to use Fastbridge 3 through 8 for the time being.
And so, because I thought Fastbridge was not approved by the state.
For this,
For K through,
specifically for the reading difficulty screener, which is only a K2 requirement.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
So we feel confident in the data and the validity and reliability of our product.
Mhm.
Because we have this extra compliance piece, we have to have this consideration of, are we adding on to our teachers or are we doing a wholesale replacement? And given that we have to do K2, our team made the recommendation, which we think is the best instructional practice, which would be the wholesale replacement.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then when they go into 3rd grade, it'll still be seamless because 3rd grade is more, it's all independent and they read on their own. We're not doing letter naming and phenomenological awareness. So we're not doing those in 3rd grade. We're only doing it K through 2.
I see. Thank you. And thank you both. You might work on this.
Of course.
Yeah, so how many, is the M-Class, so Amplify is the company, M-Class is the product. And so, is M-Class, ranked nationally, or does it have this national product? Because you were mentioning California's going against kind of the nationwide approvals of the other companies, so.
M-Class originally was known as Dibbles. Dibbles, for those of us in education, I mean, they started as the fluency metric. Dibbles is the original everybody else follows, because we know that reading fluency and automaticity is your number one predictor for difficulties. Which is why we do these 1 minute. So
Right.
Fast Bridge for third grade does have a 1 minute oral fluency check, and that is research based. We want to check their fluency along with their silent reading and comprehension skills that are computer automated.
So are you saying,
There's absolutely a national presence for
Yeah.
MClass.
got it? And so it has some years of validation,
Oh, it has decades,
decades. There we
decades,
go.
yes.
And in terms of the buy-in, well, let me go. So do you feel like with the clunkiness of Fast Bridge, right, that you were exhibiting, this obviously speeded a review of the process and what teachers liked and didn't like. Do you think that why was that kind of an ongoing pain point before this? In other words, this kind of prompted a review and like what else is out there. Would that have review sounds like it would not have happened, even though teachers had this pain point?
So for some historical context, the reason we adopted Fast Bridge a couple years ago was Fast Bridge was chosen as a result of a pilot because previously we used F&P.
Yeah.
For years, there was a pain point of the administration, the accuracy, the calibration, I don't trust the scores that come from me from this teacher before me. I don't trust the scores of the teacher after me. So from that work, we as a team identified options and landed on Fast Bridge because of its validity and reliability. So the change in the assessment is definitely an improvement because we were looking for something that was more accurate, less subjective, and just gave us better information. So with F&P, all we were doing was the fluency and comprehension. Within F&P, there were the other subtests, but ultimately the training of our staff of, we have to look at nonsense words. We have to look at automaticity and fluency within a minute for letters, sounds, letter names, nonsense words, sentence reading, high frequency words, and then regular fluency as you become a fluent reader. That part is not a pain point. The pain point that we've been working with all year is the progress monitoring, the recommendations that come out of Fast Bridge. The data are nice, it's easy, but the question that we've been trying to figure out how do we improve upon has been this next step of progress monitoring. This was the first year we were requiring progress monitoring because this is only our second year of implementation with Fast Bridge. This was a pain point that we saw.
Fast Bridge
really
is
tricky.
great. I feel like it's great. I feel like the tests are great. I feel like we don't have any. It's easy to administer. Again, it's just looking at that data and like landing on like which data are we going to look at, which one are we going to use, which one is going to help us with progress monitoring, and then what do I do when I have to progress monitor some kids? What do I use? How do I do it? And it was just clunky. I mean, it's there. It's just like, again, you have to like kind of hunt and peck and like, click 3 different times. Where this was just kind of like, it's like I said, 2.0. It's the same thing. It's just cleaner, more efficient for us. And I think teachers will use it more, in my opinion. I think they'll use it more than they are with Fast Bridge. With Fast Bridge, you're like, okay, I know my kids aren't doing great with letter naming. I'm just going to do my thing that I know how to do. Where here, maybe, I can just click on this and they'll give me a lesson. Okay, I'll try this. So I think in class would definitely be and a step up from what we're using.
So that kind of goes with my next, thank you, because it goes with my next question is, if you feel like, it sounds like that you envision the buy-in from teachers, validated by the committee, right, which hopefully they'll respect that decision-making body, the buy-in should be kind of facilitated well.
It should be seamless.
Seamless, yeah.
Now, we're teachers. Change is not our thing. So, at least Betty that I've worked with, I mean, I'm cool with change, but anyway, so yeah, I change all the time, but anyway, I understand what you're saying. And that was my question. And actually, I have to say that because the panel was a lot of reading specialists and they basically did ask that question of me, like, would it be difficult? I said, every change is difficult in some ways for people, but I think because we've already been trained, we know how to give the tests, seeing how easy this interface is, I think it'll be a seamless transfer. And I think they'll like it a lot better too.
It's definitely going to be an easier transition to go from Fast Bridge, where you do 4 subtests in the fall, winter, spring, to MClass, where you still do the 4 subtests in the fall. The nice thing about M classes, once you've graduated out of those, the computer system will say you only need to do these 2 in the winter.
Yeah.
And then these 2 in the spring, which is a plus for our kindergarten teachers. That's
Yeah.
one of the pieces. I'm dropping in that, yes, we're open to what happens in 3-5 in the fall. I'm not gonna make, we definitely considered, do we purchase for all of K-5? I'm not making those decisions in a vacuum.
Right.
K-2 has to make a decision. We're gonna do it. We're gonna see how things roll out and how people feel. And if the group wants to switch, we can make that adjustment once the teachers ask for it. Because right now we have a mandate to fix. We don't have a huge problem that needs to be fixed to create. So we'll let them drive that change. I'm not one to push where I don't need to push, because I need to preserve the social capital to push where push needs.
Thank you.
So that's the recommendation. Any other questions? I believe it's an action item.
I have a couple of questions. Sorry. I think they're quick. Maybe you said it already. TK is not mentioned just because it doesn't have to be. Like we don't have a.
TK is, we've been working with the TK team. TK is gonna be a play-based, developmentally appropriate program. We're not putting pencils and papers in front of kids until they're ready. I mean, in all seriousness, what we want for TK is for them to come learn how to be in a group of people, how to take turns, how to play, how to work on fine motor and gross motor skills, because anecdotally speaking, the fact that we put pencils in kids' hands before they're ready, they don't learn the proper grip. And by the time they come to school, we can't fix it. And then there are other things that happen. So
yeah, and they
we
come
wanna-
to first grade without that grip. And it's hard to fix.
So
yeah.
play-based, doing what's developmentally appropriate so that when they come to kindergarten and we start, the other kind of nice piece we glossed over a little bit. For kids who haven't been in school, the RDRS is, the expectation is that we assess kids once they're ready.
Yeah.
So for some kids, it may not be appropriate if they've had 0 schooling and or they're complete language learners and they don't know a lick of English yet. We may pause on the fall screening from an RDRS perspective.
It's point on the screening, I don't, slide 14 or whatever. Does that indicate the actual frequency of testing?
The requirement from the state, why is this so?
So the RDS requirement is once a year, anytime in the year.
Okay,
But-
that thing has dots everywhere.
Yeah.
That right there. That
This one includes progress monitoring.
Yeah.
Because just like with FastBridge,
Yeah.
you're going to do your benchmark assessments 3 times a year, which is standard for fall, winter, spring.
Yeah.
Some children are going to come in as high risk, in which case those students, you are going to intervene and provide instruction. But part of what we do is making sure that our intervention is working.
Gotcha.
We do additional progress monitoring assessments along the way,
Yep.
which is why you're going to see multiple dots for some kids.
Yep.
For your kids who are right at where they need to be and growing appropriately, you're just going to see fall, winter, spring, just like we have now.
Sweet. Okay. And I think maybe last one, 2-part. The mandate from the Senate bill, was it mandated as immediate?
The Senate bill is that by June 30th of 2025, the school board approves an adoption so that by the start of the 25-26 school year, we have a state approved
Okay.
assessment in play.
So the data from this year's 24-25's kindergarten, first, second, and FastBridge, you switch to
Mhm.
M2, assuming
Sure.
we raise our hands. Does it, do you lose what you?
Do I
There you
lose
go.
the growth data? No. Do they necessarily talk together? No. Does it require a little bit more manipulation when I pull the data into Illuminate? Yeah, but we can still look at the percentage of kids who are considered at risk. That data are still comparable.
Yeah.
Even though the tool is different, the metric and the percentiles of progress and growth, they're all consistent.
Sweet.
with these products.
So like the whole, like that assessment window is gonna be longer, but our reading specialists will still use the FastBridge
Yeah.
data to be able to intervene. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we have spring data that's gonna allow us to get started right away.
yeah, start right away.
Thank you. This is an action item. So the right wording. There we go. I need a motion to approve the adoption of M Class by Amplify as BRSSD's reading difficulty risk screener. RDRS.
So moved. Oh. Seconded.
Moved by trustee Day, seconded by trustee Tang. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, seeing as there are none, it is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you for,
Either.
Lisa, thank you for taking time out of your summer to join us. Appreciate it.
Just started. I packed up my last box today, so I'm all good. Anyway, thank you all and I.
Thank
see you back in the fall, maybe.
All right, item 12. Thank you for your patience. We've got a couple of presenters here, CBO Matsumoto and Hardeman.
As a quick introduction, as part of our Parcel Tax Oversight Committee bylaws, we are to have an annual report at the end of every school year. We are very blessed to have Mr. Dan Hardman, who is chair of the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee here today to give that annual report. And before he starts, I would just like to say thank you very much for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule to come in with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll read off a prepared script, which I'm not great at, but hopefully you guys will bear with me. I think last time I was more conversation. But we all got to practice. So good evening, President Bruno, members of the board and superintendent. I'm Dan Hardeman. I'm chair of the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, and this is my third time presenting and appearing before you to report on the business of the PTOC. The Parcel Tax Oversight Committee is composed of teachers, parents, and civic-minded citizens from within the district. We met 3 times this past year to review the financials as presented by Chief Business Officer Reese Matsumoto. Our meetings were held on Monday, October 7th, 2024, Wednesday, February 12th, 2025, and Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Those meetings are open to the public, although in the roughly 7 years that I've been on the PTOC, we have yet to have a visitor. While we are not professional auditors or accountants, our review process is guided by the specific mandates of the parcel tax measure and included an in-depth discussion and deliberation on. Based on our review and understanding, we did not find that parcel tax funds were spent outside of their mandated use. We confirm that to the best of our determination, funds have been utilized in accordance with the guidance of the parcel tax measure. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to express my sincere appreciation for all the work that you do. And if you could also bring it back to the rest of the committee, our sincerest thanks for all the work that you guys are doing.
Sure will.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Second.
Second. Aye.
There we go. Yeah. Do we have any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Dan.
You did great reading.
Much appreciation.
Thank you.
No. Okay, right. I need to open it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 13. Sounds right.
Yes.
Speaker wish to address the board on item number 13.
No, there are not.
Yes, there are none. Now we will hear from CBO Matsumoto on the statement of reserves for 25-26 budget.
Great, thank you. This is a requirement from the state of California in order to submit our budget for next year. Essentially, the mandate is that if you have more than 3%, which is the state's minimum amount of reserves to have, you must outline how you plan to spend those funds in the future. The sheet that you are looking at basically just outlines essentially how we plan to use it, which is to help close our deficit over time, long story short. You may notice that the number at the top, which says 16 million, is a lot lower than what the number I've been saying as for our current reserves as of right now. And there is a reason for that. Funds in a school district are split up in unrestricted and restricted funds, where restricted funds are essentially money that is provided, for example, specifically for special education or specifically for a grant that we received or even stimulus funds, for example, right? There's another roughly $12 million in there. And that's how we get to our current reserve amount. So this is just specifically for the unrestricted resources. That essentially is just the money that we receive as a result of property taxes. So long story short, again, this is just a requirement that we need to show every year for our budget. We are still in very good fiscal condition. We are still following towards our multi-year plan, which I will talk about later today for the NT time.
Great to ask questions. It's the action.
The action of the board of trustees hold a public hearing, so it should officially open. And then we want to discuss the bonds and reserves as well as the bonds. CBO Matsumoto, do you need a formal approval on the documents attached?
The information item.
Actually, I believe as long as it's just a public hearing, I don't technically need,
Is the action.
yeah, in
Okay.
action.
Hearing is the action.
So I know we solicited
I never named.
comments, but I think we should formally do a public hearing. Just open it, and close it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna scroll back.
Yeah.
And open the public hearing on the statement of reserves for 25-26 budget. And I'm going to re-ask you, are there any speakers wishing to address the board?
No, there are not.
Here's your presentation.
It was-
There are no questions.
Thank you.
And I'm going
Appreciate
to
that.
close the public hearing on the statement of reserves for 25-26 budget. Okay, don't sit down yet.
Still standing.
Number people watching don't know. You're so unprofessional. Item number 14. Going to open a public hearing and resolution for 24-25 on the Proposition 30 Education Protection Account. So far, so good. Ms. Ellinger, are there any speakers wish to address the board on this item?
No, there are not.
Seeing as there are none, CBO Matsumoto will give us words.
Thank you very much. Again, as part of the state of California requirements, in order to approve our budget for the 25-26 school year, we receive money that is specifically indexed towards teacher salaries. And that is called the Education Protection Account. And basically, as of every year, we must pass this resolution that says that we will spend the money meant for teacher salaries on teacher salaries. The amount of this is roughly $760,000. And I believe on certificated staff, we spend something around $24 million. So I'm happy to say that I do believe we will be able to spend that money for the next school year.
Any questions? Okay, there is an action item this time. I need a motion to approve resolution 2024-25-25, approving the Proposition 30 Education Protection Account proposed expenditures for the 2024-25 fiscal year, which will be incorporated into the district's adoption budget for 2025-26.
So moved.
I second.
There it is. You're on a roll. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Seeing as there are no nays, the item is approved and the public hearing on item 14 is now closed. Don't sit down yet. Item number 15, budget adoption. Again, we'll hear from CBO Matsumoto.
Great, thank you. I believe I have a presentation as well. Great, thank you. As always, if you take nothing away from this presentation except three things. One, we are, thank you. This is a continuation from the public hearing in May. So the public hearing is May and the formal adoption is now in June. And this we then take to the county office and then ultimately to the state of California for ultimate approval. So this is basically the final step in the process, at least for us. Secondly, we are still planning to run a $5.3 million deficit. This aligns with our overall multi-year plan, which we are running deficits while our revenues catch up with our expenditures and also while our enrollment continues to the. And thirdly, I actually stole the thunder of my third point with my second point a little bit, so there are only 2 points for this one.
Number three is C above.
Thank you.
Number 1 and 2.
Exactly. Again, so to go through this very quickly, the public hearing was in May, and then we made a few adjustments just to make sure everything was in the right place. So ultimately, the numbers are the same, but the composition of it just shifted very slightly as we made sure that the numbers that we budget on actually reflect the numbers that they will go in within the California School Accounting Manual. So that is what we have worked on. Thinking about the budget for next year, again, none of the key inputs have changed. This is exactly what I showed last time in May. Again, we are a basic aid district, which means that we are not withholden to the state of California cost of living increase, which earlier this year was 0.76% and now has risen to 2.83%. Again, typically in a given year, we are anywhere between 4 to 5% of property tax increase growth. So again, we are very thankful that we are a basic aid district, and it means that we are very fortunate to have a level increase of funding from year to year, and very fortunately do not have to pay attention too much to the government budgets that come out every year. Again, moving forward, most of our money comes through LCFF sources, which really is just our basic aid funds. We receive roughly $1.4 million of federal funding. And again, I would just like to shout out Trustee Northrup for going all the way to DC and continuing to fight for our federal funds.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Our state revenue relates to mostly special education funds that we received. Last year was higher because we received money for the Arts Museum and Instructional Materials Grant, which we continue to spend down, and other local revenue. I must also, again, shout out School Force for all the work that they do in money for our kids and making sure that we have some best enrichment programs around for our students. So again, this is something we can't do without them, and I can't express our gratitude enough for all the work that they do for us and our school districts. Also within local revenue is our parcel tax committee, which I would again like to thank Mr. Hardman for coming out and giving his annual report on, as well as any additional funds that we receive for rent and or any of our current sites, et cetera. Thinking about the expenditure side, the one big change that we have done here is we have budgeted for a lot of the positions that we currently go out for a contracted services, and we have basically turned them into positions. And that is very important because it allows us basically to see how much more we are spending on contractors than we would spend on an internal candidate in any given year. And also continues to help us move towards the perfect ideal of being fully in-house staff. Now, there are a lot of constraints as to why that may not be able to happen. For example, special education positions are very difficult to find. Not a lot of them are full-time. Them require different hours, and just generally across the county of San Mateo, a lot of districts are struggling to find positions like paraeducators. So again, as we continue to move forward, that ideal of being fully internally staffed, we are currently budgeting in that way, just to make sure we can continue to make that a priority for us. Thinking about the other funds that we have, that is the cafeteria fund, which funds our nutrition program, which I will touch upon later. Fund 21, which is our bond expenditure program, which I will also touch upon later. And Fund 25 for developer fees and school facilities, and Fund 35 for school facilities. Essentially, these two funds relate to when a new building comes up in our bounds. Technically, there is a cost per square meter of property that the developers pay actually to the school district. And so that's essentially where this money is housed. And again, for our multi-year projections, we are continuing to deficit spend. using the surplus that we have built up through the usage of stimulus funds in the past 3-4-ish years. And as our revenue catches up to our expenditures, we plan to basically use that surplus to fund the deficit. So again, that is our overarching plan. The plan has not changed. The plan will not change. We are continuing to basically chip away at the deficit, and it will close likely in 3 to 4-ish years. That I conclude my presentation and now open the floor to questions.
We go back one more slide. The Fund 13 cafeteria. So the expenses are kind of flipped, like the expenses versus ending balance kind of flipped a little bit compared to 24-25 is 522 versus 2.1, right? And then the expenses seem to have shot up.
That's the ending balance, so that's not the expenditures.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we should be looking at 24-25 ending balance versus projected ending balance.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the comparison.
Exactly.
Okay, and the increase is more meals or?
The increase basically means that we project that the food vendor that we go with for 25-26, with the inclusion of the money that we are contributing, will leave roughly $180,000 left over in the Fund 13 balance at the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much for putting everything together. I did have a question on slide 5. And then I was looking at the supporting materials where there's hundreds of pages.
Yes.
So I apologize for not asking in advance, but sorry, could you give us more detail on the 2.7 million that's budgeted for books and supplies?
That includes curriculum that we have to buy for our students. It also includes any materials for central offices. Long story short, that's essentially mostly what it is. Physical textbooks, physical items. It also includes, strangely enough, some of the equipment that our maintenance team has to buy. Whenever you have physical objects, those actually get coded in this as well under books and supplies, even though you don't technically aggregate them in the same realm as curriculum.
Okay, thank you. And then, sorry, and I know this is asking a lot. Is there anywhere in the 121 pages where it might say like, I'm just, we're spending this amount on this curriculum, for example?
No, unfortunately, basically the way that the California School Accounting Manual groups everything up is by the thousands code. So long story short, there are budget codes that we have to use to file all of our expenditures and revenues into. Okay, it's a string of codes that goes essentially, the fund code, the resource code, the year code, the function, the goal, the object, the school, and the management code. So there's a lot of room to create a lot of variety in there. And thankfully, we have a very good budget supervisor in Leia that manages all of that. But in order to not overwhelm people, essentially, it just narrows it down into the thousands codes, which is essentially what you're seeing here.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
See, Northrop, if you have a specific desire to look at, for example, what we're spending in consumable books or something like that, we can pull that information. Just let me know.
Thank you. That's all that I have for questions. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I just, sorry, can I, you want to take that?
Good, you go ahead.
So when you were talking about the pandemic, I go back to that slide. That was a good slide. So I'm sorry, the expenditures, yeah. So it seems like we're very much, salaries and benefits are driving the bulk. The capital outlay makes sense. Books and supplies are what they are. Is that 9.2 million category for services and other operating expenses? Is that kind of maybe where there's an opportunity still to review like the contractors, especially I'm thinking of the contractors. And obviously how many we're using. Is that bucket an opportunity to kind of see where we can do?
I would say, generally, there's always an opportunity to, take a look at the expenditures. I will say, for us as a district, most of our contracted services actually fall into specialized positions that we just can't hire in-house, or that it doesn't make sense to hire in-house. They serve one student. It doesn't necessarily make sense to pay $250,000 for that specialist, right?
Okay.
Makes sense to pay maybe $40,000 for that specialist. And also we send a number of kids to different specialty schools, particularly for special education.
Yes, that's okay.
Unfortunately, those are very expensive.
Yes.
And again, there's not too much that we can do about those.
Okay.
I think you're thinking about, contracts for, maybe we're using them for additional help somewhere, and, maybe we could find some synergy somewhere else to make up for that. I think there's a little bit of that, but in general, I would say that our district actually runs quite lean, given all the amounts of things that we do. And so ultimately, that's why much of our budget is in salaries, and even for much of the services, it ends up being people as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. Awesome.
All right, on this item, I need a motion to approve the Belmont-Redwood Shores School District 2025-26 budget as presented.
Should lead off this.
So moved.
Second.
There you go.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
There are no nays. The budget is approved. You can take a break for a bit. And now, have a age. Put your feet up.
Standing this whole time.
Stop it, guys. This is serious. Item number 16. LCAP adoption.
Who's back?
Welcome back. Okay, so similarly to CBO Matsumoto, I have Matsuhisa sushi on my brain tonight. We were gonna do sushi for dinner tonight, which is why it's not totally nonsense. Here we are for the of our. There are not many changes from the last time I presented this to you. Since last month to now, the county did do some review for us, and CBO Matsumoto and I worked with the county to make sure our numbers were accurate, and we dotted our T's and crossed our I, dotted our I's.
There we go.
It's been a So
That's a lot of.
goals in our district continue to be functionally the same. We really want to make sure we are maintaining the conditions of learning, improving our school culture and climate, and focusing in on our community engagement, and very specifically chronic absenteeism. All of our work here is meant to be aligned, so our staff don't feel like, oh, here's yet another thing. This is part of the conversation we're having with the RDRS adoption. It is about finding where things make sense and where actions and assessments and adoption and any decisions that we make fall into line with our primary goal, which is supporting our students. So you may, if you are a sharp reader, notice that we added a few engagement and advisory opportunities, only because last time we were waiting for the specific dates for the SELPA consultation. Jenny, our director of special programs, attends monthly meetings with the SELPA team. This year, the SELPA team did their consultation a little bit differently. They used to pull us all together in one meeting and we would talk, and instead this year it makes more sense. They have integrated it into their monthly meetings with our directors. So that got added. You'll see all the SELPA administrator consultations throughout the year. The supplemental concentration that we talked about last month is maintaining the same piece. We have taken all of the individual action items that used to be funded out of LCF supplemental dollars at the school site, and we've aggregated the money basically so that we can ensure that we spend all of our LCF concentration dollars, supplemental dollars, on an annual basis. And we utilized the same data points that we talked about last time, thinking about our dashboard data, thinking about where we are in the red in terms of academic performance, looking at our specific student groups, and then allocating dollars based off of student need. Nothing new here, right? We have expended all of the allocated dollars thus far for the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. This is a new slide. The county reminded me that we need to make sure we report on this publicly and include this in here. We have utilized the dollars that were intended for 23 through 25. There's been a new round of allocation given to us by the governor. It was not released until May, so it did not make it in time for us to actually functionally plan for 25, 26 with all of our community members. And so we are planning to use 25, 26 to plan for the use of the LREBG dollars before the 2028 deadline. Compliance issue. Ultimately, we get money. We always plan with our stakeholder groups and then we report out how we're spending it. So that's just for FYI. Remember that we have some students from schools that hit the 40% or higher threshold of unduplicated pupil count. So those are students who are eligible for free or reduced lunch, foster youth and or English learners. Nesbit is at that threshold. And so we are able to provide school-wide implementation of supplemental dollars because of their high concentration of students who are considered unduplicated. You can see the various differences in percentage counts by school site. The action items are basically, there's nothing here that's different because like I said, between last month and this month, there wasn't anything functionally different. What we did make sure to include for your review as well as include into the written plan itself are the very specific items for Redwood Shores. Principal Herrera has worked with her school site council team. If you remember, Redwood Shores was designated as being in TSI, so it's targeted supplemental supports and improvement because her Latino population was in the red for chronic absenteeism for 2 consecutive years. And so they are currently in TSI. One of the requirements is that then her team helps her plan specific actions prior to June 30th that are included in our LCAP for implementation in the fall. So all of the input here that you see under Redwood Shores chronic absenteeism are the very specific action items that Principal Herrera has worked through with her team that you will see in her SIPSA that will be approved with the rest of the team later in the fall, but this has already been approved by her site council. Really paying attention to having individual meetings with students who were chronically absent this year so that they can implement a plan for attendance next year. Also celebrating throughout the year and kind of gamifying with students to celebrate the 3 classrooms with the highest attendance, being really proactive with regularly monitoring attendance as it drops to 90% or lower so that we can catch it in time to make an improvement. You know, finding out 90% of the year, the way through the year that you've missed 12% of the school year is not going to make a big difference. But if we're a month in and you're already on track, can affect major change in the remaining 160 days. And then just recognizing those who do come to school with perfect or great attendance. She has a plan to celebrate.
Oh.
I'm hoping for lots of great attendance, maybe not perfect, but we want you to stay home if you're sick. We don't want you to stay home unnecessarily and because you stayed out too late or you traveled in too long, you know, you had a late flight in or you're extending your flights, but we would like to make sure you stay home safe. So this is just some more information on the targeted support and improvement designation. So I just wrote them out for you a little bit bigger so you could see because they were in the red for 2 consecutive school years.
Great.
Other than that, there is no change. Those of you who saw the updated plan, I don't know if you caught it or not, the DTS template is a little bit tricky and they auto-populate certain things. So we have several actions that we are discontinuing in 25, 26. Not because the actions are ending, but because we are shifting the budgetary items. So to not have to report out on every little thing, we marked that they were discontinued. So I didn't say if they were contributing or not, because they're non-existent, but because I didn't click that, they didn't show up as not contributing. So those are the types of edits you'll see as you review the updated documents that were loaded, just making sure the no's were all checked. Questions?
The learning recovery emergency block grant on slide 7.
Yes.
You had mentioned that it's not going to be included in the input. Will that money still be used in
The money will be used. The allocation for the 25 to 27 wasn't released in time for us to be able to actually add it to the LCAP. So starting this year moving forward, there's a new requirement that we plan for in the LCAP, LREBG dollars, how they are being spent with specific metrics and actions. So while we know that we're gonna get money, we will likely plan throughout the year and maybe in the mid-year during the 25-26 school year, come to you with here's how we're gonna use it in the year. But because we didn't get it in time to actually make a plan with meaningful engagement, we have 3 options. This is our compliance. Functionally speaking, when the money comes, we will get the stakeholders together, we'll look at where we're at, we'll make a plan, and we will share publicly what we're doing because all of our dollars are public dollars.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well then.
I did have a question, sorry. Thank you for including the increased improved services for 25-26. And I wanted to ask specifically about the chronic absenteeism, where it says a regularly scheduled meeting with the students. Are the parents going to be involved? I think somewhere it says there'll be a monthly attendance letter sent to students who are below 90%.
The letters will be sent home.
Yes.
If the students are identified, but the parents will be receiving the letter, yes.
Okay, and so the
Elementary school, when a child is absent, it's not the child's fault.
yes, but
Yes, it is.
the principal is planning on meeting with the group of students?
It's
or-
going to be there's a couple of different actions. So the school team, so teacher, counselor together, either together, separate, splitting the case, however, will meet first with the families to say, did you know that you missed 15% or more of the school year last year? What's going on? What can we do? So there will be individual conversation for those who this year were chronically absent.
Okay.
And then going forward, we'll continue to monitor any student who is missing 10% of the school year as we go so that they can catch any issues that need to be addressed, right?
I think the question is meeting with all students versus meeting with the families of all students.
Sure. Yes.
Okay, yes,
Yes.
yes, that was my
It is-
question, yes.
Yes, it is
Okay.
going to be with the families of the students.
Okay, great.
Like I said, when a child doesn't get to school because they live far away and their parents, there are legitimate reasons, right? So it's not just a tisk, you know? I mean, we have a balance. Some really, I half joke, but some really are gone because they're going on vacation. Others, you only have one mode of transportation you're sharing, and what can we do to help you overcome that so that we can make sure you're here at school?
Great, thank you.
Anything else?
The question? Seeing as there are none, we're looking for a motion to approve the local control accountability plan as presented.
So moved.
I second.
Yes, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Seeing as there are no nays, the LCAP is approved.
Thank you.
And I'll just point out that the
Oh,
board
wait, I'm not.
accomplished the
Don't sit
2
down.
largest things of the school year.
Boom. Did you hear all that?
Yeah.
We're doing amazing. Okay. Assistant Superintendent who has not left. Item 17, the dashboard, local indicators, local control accountability plan, local indicators.
That's a lot of local.
I can repeat myself.
The California School Dashboard, as you are familiar with, is our rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, red, yellow, green, blue, right? That gives us our rating. We have absolute metrics that the state pulls in automatically from chronic absenteeism, suspension data, assessment achievement on the CASP, language learner proficiency. Then there are a chunk of indicators that are referred to as local indicators, which are really asking us as a school district to self-reflect and evaluate. It's a really simple metric. If we talk about it as a team and we share with you what we did, then we've met the indicator. So ultimately, we look every year, we have a process by which the principals and I in our principals meeting review each of these components. For basic conditions, that's the FIT report. Those are turned into CBO Matsumoto. They have been completed. For implementation of academic standards, we have a poll that we survey on. How are we doing? Does everybody have the textbooks that they need? Are we actually improving instruction? And based on the conversation, we make internal plans, but the metric of this is, have we given ourselves a self-evaluation? We look at parent engagement. Are our teams meeting regularly? Are the ELACs and SSCs functioning as they're supposed to? Again, I review that with the principals, having discussed it. Not everything, just because we've met, it doesn't mean everything's perfect. But the point is, have we looked at our processes and our procedures, which we have, so that's met. We look at our school climate. What are we doing to measure school climate? Are we utilizing outside surveys such as Sabres and My Sabres and Youth Truth Survey? So similarly, we are addressing if we think that the metrics we're using are the appropriate ones and making any changes necessary. And then the very final one has to be the access to a broad course of study. I think this is probably the most important in my mind. I look at all of our course offerings and we look to see if there's any discrepancy or disproportionality in enrollment. Pleasantly speaking, every year when we look at the racial makeup, we look at the language learner status, we look at all the different disaggregations in our advanced classes that we do offer. We don't offer that many. There is not disproportionality in the number of students and the percentage of students enrolled in the AS classes compared to our overall population. And that is a huge piece of ensuring that we are not segregating students. So that is a win for us. We look at that every year to make sure when we make recommendations and we allow students choice and families to participate in their course of study, that we are offering not only good options, but ensuring that everybody has access to them. Questions? Okay. Then I have so presented this to you on the same day that you have approved the LCAP, and now we are in compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 18 is back. Matsumoto on approval of vended meal provider for 25-26.
Great. Before I go through the vended meal provider selection, I would like to just give a quick presentation about our nutritional program. Just I think our community deserves it, and also to get everyone on the same page as we move forward. So let's just start off with what is our mandate, right? As a school district, we are mandated to provide 2 school meals free of charge to students. And what that means is a breakfast and a lunch to every student that desires it. On any given day, we must have a meal for them. Secondly, all of those meals must be nutritiously adequate, and they must qualify for federal reimbursement. And what that means is that all of our meals are now withholden to federal guidelines on what a meal should include. And that means that it needs to have a starch or it needs to have a grain, a protein, a vegetable, a fruit must be taken, and also there must be a milk component to it as well. So all that means is that, how do we think about this? The federal government, if we must provide federally reimbursable meals, we are now withholden to the amount of money that the federal government reimburses us for these. We get $2.37 for breakfast, and we get $4.43 for lunch. Just for some quick side-by-side comparisons, I pulled the cost of a Egg McMuffin for breakfast from McDonald's and a quarter pounder for lunch from McDonald's. And as you can see from the slide on the board right now, we get nowhere close to the cost of just these daily items that we may all take for granted. And sometimes we eat for breakfast and for lunch, right? Mm-hmm. I think many people see this as kind of almost the baseline, right, of meals that people would eat for some of these. However, we are much short of that in terms of what we can provide our kids, and that is just because of the mandate that we have under the state of California. So, where does that leave us? Again, this is not a question that we will be answering today, but one that we are considering for the long term, right? Essentially, with all of these rules in place, there are 3 paths that we can take. One of them is to continue down the bed and meals path and keep where we are. No additional contributions. What that means is we continue to put the money that we are currently putting towards our kids, right? None of that money will be taken out to create better lunches. What it does mean is that our lunches will not improve in quality. We will have the same type of meals. We will have the same quality of meals now and into the future. The second option is continuing with vended meals, but doing more for the contribution, right? And I'll get to this a little bit more in a second. We have a sensitivity table behind this. And basically, the pro there is we might be able to get better meals. If we put more money towards this program, say maybe $1 more per meal, maybe we can get the extra nice tomato, for example, or we can get a slightly nicer hamburger, or a slightly nicer chicken nugget from somewhere else. However, it comes with a cost, and we will have to contribute more as a school district to make that happen. And all that means is there are dollars that otherwise would be going towards students' educations, now going towards better food, right? And I think there's a trade-off there, right? The last decision is that we could build our own kitchen and run our own food operation. And that has happened at a number of school districts here on the peninsula as well. But that also comes with a big cost. One of them is we currently do not have a kitchen big enough to satiate all of the current eaters that we have in our district. We do have one functional kitchen in Ralston. It is nowhere large enough to feed all of our students, right? Building a central kitchen is expensive. I think, initial quotes were somewhere in between the $7 to $9 million. Even just building something for, our current school base, which roughly we have, call it 30 to 40% eatership on a daily basis, right? So not all of our kids are eating, and even at that, it would still cost almost that much money to build a kitchen big enough to just feed those students, right? So that would be taking away bond dollars from our bond program that we could be using to, make our campuses nicer, potentially fields that may be upgrading a field potentially from natural grass to turf, for example, right? However, we would get greater control over the food. We would be able to actually have, be able to see real time the quality of food that's being produced. And because the food would be cooked a lot closer to our campuses, it would be a lot fresher when it got there. The one caveat I have there is, in my opinion, when you package food, no matter how far it's traveling, if it's hot when it's packaged, it's going to steam. And when it steams, it starts to look soggy. You have a fresh hamburger bun, you put a fresh hamburger in there, and then you ship it even 10 minutes. When it gets there, if it's under a closed lid, under a closed saran wrap, it's going to steam a little bit. It's going to be a little bit moist. It's going to be a little bit soggy when it gets to students. So it doesn't matter if the food is coming 5 miles, 15 miles, even 50 miles, right? There is going to be some degradation in the quality if the food has to travel at all. So again, no decision has to be made today, nor do we have a recommendation for any of these. We are exploring all of these options as we speak. Right now, we are continuing down the vended meal path with the same contribution. But if we decided to invest more in the vended meal program and increase our contribution, Superintendent DeGuara and I did some quick math to figure out what that would look like. Unfortunately, even just adding more money in terms of contribution per meal is not as simple as just, well, it's $1 more, which means we just take $1 times the number of kids eating, right? As the food quality gets better, you would also assume that more kids would likely eat lunch, right? And that's essentially what the sensitivity table is about, right? So you can see at every price point or every increase in dollar per meal that we would add to this. And you can also see on the x-axis how much increase in potential eatership there would be as well. And as you can see, these numbers start to spiral out of control relatively quickly, right? You're talking on a roughly $69 million budget. We could be adding, if we added $5 and 70% more kids ate, that's almost $2 million added to the budget. Now, that's a little bit far-fetched, right? I think adding 70% more kids eating is a possibility, but perhaps a low chance, even at $5 more per meal. But you can see essentially, what would happen. Again, there is no guidance, needed for today. If you have any comments at the end of this presentation, at the end of the the vended meal provider recommendation, I would love to hear them. But again, this is really a presentation to reorient ourselves around where we are from a vended meal perspective, and just to get us all thinking about, I think we all have a vested interest in making this program as good as it possibly can be. But again, with everything, there are trade-offs, right? So thank you very much. Moving on to the actual meat and potatoes of the presentation. We'll be going through the vended meal provider recommendation for 25-26. So we went through a very rigorous process in order to select this vendor. In order to qualify to even submit an RFP, you had to participate in a taste test that included parents, included students, included the staff that served the meals, and it also included Trustee Cost and Trustee Dang. So I would like to, give a special thanks for both of you for coming out and helping to taste test the meals.
Tasting all the food.
It's a hard job.
Right.
Somebody's got to do it. After that, we received 4 bids or 4 responses to our RFP. From that, we disqualified one of the vendors because it did not make operational sense, or we did not move them forward to the interview round because it did not make operational sense. Of the final 3, we then did an interview with our current nutrition team plus Superintendent DeGuara. And ultimately, we decided to move forward with the lunch master for the 25-26 school year. I would also like to caveat that the way that school nutrition contracts work is it's actually on a year-to-year basis. So you have up to 4 additional renewals. So essentially, this contract can be as little as 1 year or up to as high as 5 years. So every year we have the luxury of also being able to reevaluate our vendors just to make sure that we do feel like they are the best option at a given point. And given what I just talked about earlier, I think that's important for us, especially as we really consider all the options that are at hand. So that I now open the floor for questions.
On that year-to-year contract, you're saying at the end of each year, we can say, we don't want the same, but if we decide to continue with them, they would maintain the same cost or whatever.
Exactly.
Just want to.
So it's very advantageous for the school districts. That's the way that all school vended meal contracts are done.
Can I ask a general question about federal? So our current, we're trying to keep a zero cost to the general fund. That's our goal. With this amount at the federal, what is the federal, they're giving $237 and $443 for lunch. Where are they basing it, as your great graph kind of showed? It seems to be at about 80% or whatever, roughly, of a meal, of another meal. And if this is supposed to be healthy, which, it is given the triangle or whatever they're doing. My question is where are they basing their numbers on?
So the origins
Way out of whack.
Yes, so first, let me say I agree with you, right? Yeah. The origins of the food program, just general, right, is to provide food for our neediest of students, right? And unfortunately, what they deem to be a suitable meal, right, does not necessarily meet the standards of what maybe, others in this room might consider to be a legitimate meal, right? They are really just trying to provide the baseline of meals to students, right? And again, because we feel like our students deserve the best, I think this is why we are in this problem solving kind of mindset, right? How do we make this as good as possible? But at its very core, this is the National Food Program is just meant to provide a base level of nutrition for all kids who may not have access to meals at the very start of the day. Unfortunately, right, there's a lot of inequity based into that when you look at the price, but that is their base mandate. That is how they started, and that is why this reimbursement rate is so low.
I guess and I can look and maybe try to look it up. I appreciate what you said. I'm just out of curiosity, knowing where did they think that these numbers, or like where are they basing these numbers? Because if obviously the Bay Area is expensive,
yep,
and it's not another part of California, so maybe they're taking a state average, but they must have done some research as to, knowing that in some, I think we're advantaged and lucky that we can maybe take up some of the slack, but some of the school districts in the state of California and rural areas cannot. So where that might be a hardship for them to even, so where, I'm just curious as to where, if you know, where they're getting where do they get their numbers from originally? And is there a COLA attached to it? So that to keep pace with what vendors, because otherwise, how can we even have vendors to choose from if they can't keep pace with the mandate?
Unfortunately, I don't know exactly how they calculate it. I do believe there is a small COLA baked in, but I don't believe that it's, nearly as high as necessarily catching up with CPI, for example, right?
Yeah.
I forgot my second thought there, but you're exactly right.
Yeah.
And we can take a look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, do you know, is that a state, is it coming from the state of California this number or it's federal?
Oh, sorry,
Like,
this is a
that's-
federal number?
It's the-
Yeah.
I thought, sorry, I thought this was state. Got it.
And honestly, that actually makes it even more
Worse.
disadvantageous.
Yeah.
for us.
Because
Yeah.
California, yeah,
Our cost of living is significantly higher than other parts in the US,
yeah.
right?
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
It makes more sense.
I completely forgot that it was. Like, that's terrible.
Any other questions?
Just for thinking for the future, for the possibility of building kitchens. Have you thought about what the operating cost would be in terms of staff to run a kitchen?
Yeah, that is also within, believe us, we are also thinking that as well, right? And I think, again, that's where really our leadership comes into play, right? Given our current scope, I haven't done the formal math for it, but I think we would come out okay if we staffed with maybe a manager and, a few people at just the kitchen level. I think where we may run into a bunch of issues, especially trying to run a cost neutral program, is the delivery of it. Again, if we go with the central kitchen model, right, then we will still need people to distribute it. And maybe that is the people cooking the food as well, right? But again, that there's a whole HR backstory that needs to go into that as well. There is another option where we potentially have, a distributed kitchen model is what I'm calling it, where we have kitchens at every school. Then you don't need anyone driving it, right? Except maybe a central driver who has to then, get the procurement of foods. If there is like a central freezer or, making sure that everyone has the correct ingredients to, serve it. And still with that, you would still need some sort of manager to, work on recipes, make sure the food quality between 7 sites is exactly the same, right? Make sure they're doing things by the book, make sure they're compliant with the food inspector that comes every couple months, right? So again, there are a number of costs. We're still looking into it. Again, this was meant to just be a high level overview of how we're thinking about some of the different options that we have right now.
Thank you.
Of course.
Curious to the contract, is it a per student cost in the contract or is it by volume?
Yeah, so what we do is we give every single vendor what our average meal count is for the entire school year. And they give us a per unit cost for breakfast and for lunch. Essentially, they're pretty much all the same. Thank you for reminding me of what I meant to tell trustee Cost. So because it's so restrictive, right, under the federal reimbursement guidelines, it is very difficult for companies to survive in this space.
Yeah.
That is why there are really only roughly 2 or 3 entrenched vendors, right? The Lunchmaster, Revolution Foods, and some may even say Chefables as well, right? Those are kind of the 3 largest players that we have in the Bay Area. But because it's so hard to produce food at that cost, you need scale essentially, right? And so it's really prohibitive to new companies coming in because they just don't have the scale to be able to produce meals for that low of a cost. However, one thing that is encouraging is that this year, we did have 2 vendors come in to bid against both Revolution Foods and the Lunchmaster. One is a brand new company that essentially is mostly a a SaaS platform that connects how should I say, caterers to school districts, essentially. The caterers cook the food and deliver the food. And the other one is basically they run more of a catering business at a very large scale, but they're trying to get into the school food business. But in comparison to years past, at least there is competition outside of the two largest vendors. Unfortunately, because those companies are both still relatively in their nascent stages, it's a little bit difficult for us to see them succeeding operationally. For example, one of them is brand new to the Bay Area, and the other one is finishing up building their plant in the Bay Area, but they're not quite finished. So what they're currently doing is shipping up the food from Los Angeles, which is not super feasible for any of the districts here, right? So I think the excitement is that there seems to be growing competition in the space, which is great for us and great for our kids. But again, it's tough. It's tough out there, particularly for those vendors, right? I don't know how their operating sheets look like, but I would imagine when you're getting reimbursed $2.30 and $4 for lunch, you're going to be running pretty tight margins just generally.
My other question was, what is the delta between our current eatership and our free reduced lunch population?
Unfortunately, both our general eatership and our free and reduced price lunch students are both not eating at very high rates. I think it's I believe generally it's amongst our non-free and reduced price lunch population. I think it's closer to that 30%, and I think amongst our free and reduced price lunch students, it's around 20. And that's one of the main drivers why we decided to go back out for RFP this time around. Again, at the very base of our food program, the mandate and our goal, right, is to make sure that our students who need it the most have meals every day, right? And particularly if those students aren't eating, it's on us to try and figure out ways to get them to eat, right? And that is why we decided the best course of action was to go back out. And that's why, even though it was relatively late in the RFP process to go out for a new food vendor, we decided to pull the trigger and go for it. So we will continue monitoring for this year, and our hope is that eatership will go up a lot this year.
Gotcha.
I had a question around wasted food.
Yeah.
So if we are ordering food from these vendors, and the anticipation is that this food that we've ordered, our students would eat it. I see regularly that there are lots of meals not eaten. What happens to those? Are we charged for those? Are we throwing them away? Like, how does that all work?
We do get charged for those meals. However, our nut clerks have a system where they see what the students are eating on any given day. So if it's hot dog day, they track how many students come at that given site.
Yeah.
So they aim to, be pretty much on average plus maybe like one or two extras. We also allow them to purchase essentially bagel kits as backups, just in case they even run out of those. And those are still a compliant meal, just in case, there may be a student that, at the last seconds decides, oh, I'm actually even more hungry. I want an additional, part of this. In terms of, a bagel, bagel, cream cheese, and then they still have the veggie fruit and milk to take as well.
Okay.
Just to ensure that there is food at all times, right? Because unfortunately, the lifespan of the food is not terribly long, so we can't hold on to food for a very long time, which leads into your second question, right? Which is leftover food. We actually have some parent volunteers that come multiple times a week to take additional food over to Samaritan House. The big issue we had this year is around the dating. At a certain point, Samaritan House would not accept meals that were not dated. So we had to have our current food provider date all the meals so that when Samaritan House receives it, they can say, okay, it's still fresh because we received it within, 1 day of it being created. So all the meals get donated that, students don't eat. And in that way, it's a very efficient process where none of the meals go to waste. And we always make sure we have an empty fridge, right? So we're always trying to make sure that There's no possibility of any food just sitting around for, multiple days at a time.
About the dating, so do we write that into the new contract to make sure that the food is dated?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
And we pay for the food that's not eaten.
Yes.
Right,
Yes,
so that
exactly.
is still dollars that we're spending that.
Yes, and that still goes into the calculation of, we will still be able to run a mostly net zero program.
Can I ask a question about the meals? So we pay for them and then they're not eaten and then we donate them, do we get a tax write-off for that?
No, unfortunately, we did not get a tax write-off. I would love it if we did, but again, we are not a taxable entity.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
it's unfortunate. I mean, luckily, we did not. have that.
Yeah.
Now think about the graph you had earlier on if you don't have to pull that up, but if we were thinking about contributing or whatever, raise equality, operationally, and the way we current function, whether it's the volunteers needed to distribute the food and the space that we're taking and the waste that we have, is the percentage going up, the number of kids eating. Is that a good thing from your point of view?
From an operational standpoint, I mean, it just makes it tough, right? I think I would be happy with more students eating food because it means that our food is of a greater quality and that the kids like it.
Yeah.
And I think we would figure out the operational part as part of that. But, from a very honest standpoint, it would be an additional cost, right? And so, we'd have to factor it into play as well. On top of just, paying more for the lunches, we may need more staff at a given site.
In terms of the monitoring, that was a good question that President Bruno asked. How do you monitor it? It's a card, right? And is that how we monitor it? The kids each have a card and then how do you link it up? Then you link it up to the free and reduced lunch population?
Yeah, so everything is linked to our student information system. And so that's ultimately their student ID is what they're entering. So that's how we prove that they are eating in a given day and it's linked to their background information. So that's how we track whether or not it's price lunch versus general education or other students eating on a given day. Currently, we use the card system for our youngest kids. So TK to 3 right now, but as of next year, we'll be moving all 4th to 6th graders to a PIN. Half of our schools are already doing it. It's just moving the other 3 schools onto it as well. They just memorize their student ID number and there's a little keypad at the end of the food line. And they just punch it in, press enter, and they're done.
That's cool. Thanks.
Matter of process, I'm about to ask for a motion to approve the vendor. We've been asking questions that don't really have much to do with the vendor. This is not me saying we should ask more questions. This is me just clarifying that for everybody. If you do want to ask any questions about the vendor, that will be my next question. We all good? Beautiful. All right. I need a motion to approve moving forward with Nob Hill Catering doing business as the lunch master for vended meal services for 2025-2026.
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing as there are none. The vended meal provider is approved for 25-26. Don't sit down yet.
I will just real quick mention, tomorrow we prepare a communication to our community, letting them know that our vendor has changed and process we went through to change, as well as a shift on our Wednesday lunch schedules to ensure that our students have a full meal period to eat Wednesday minimum days, and that our dismissal time will just adjust ever so slightly. So that'll go out tomorrow.
Thank you. Item 19, approval of Measure P architectural services.
Thank you. As part of the Measure P bonds, we approved the program manager, which is TeleQ, a few board meetings ago, and this is to approve the other half of that team, which is our architectural services team. We received 5 bids, of which we did an initial screening of those RFPs, and we then moved 2 of them over to an interview round. Again, we're very fortunate to have Trustee Cost participate in that again. Shout outs for Trustee Cost tonight. Ultimately, we decided to move forward with Dryling Tyrone's Architects for our Measure P architectural services.
No, thank you. Any questions? There you go. That's how you move it.
Question about the architects. So the architects choose who, do they get to choose who all the different players are in the?
Oh, in like any specific construction project? So the way it would work is the program manager helps us figure out the cadencing, and they oversee kind of, you know, the day-to-day in the case that the district cannot be there, right? So they're the people on site every day managing the project. They have expertise, so they can say, okay, the roofers, you know, they're checking to make sure they're doing the right thing at all, right? The architect, when there are more involved projects, require the DSA, which I cannot remember the acronym for. DSA is the main board that you have to put your designs through just to make sure that it's following all of the laws around it. They do all the designs. They're the ones that are, you know, drawing the fancy layouts of our buildings. They're helping to make sure that when they design the brand new district office that, you know, there's enough load bearing beams to, you know, have an open space, et cetera, right? So the architect is really just the design team, and the program manager, what they do is if they're for any project, regardless if the architect is involved or not, they're the ones helping to run the bid processes for those individual contractors. Within the state of California, you have to run a formal bid process for all of these subcontractors. So if it's an electrical subcontractor, whether it's, you know, a general
Engineering, HVAC, so the other.
Yes, so TeleQ helps us run those processes, right? And just for a quick refresher, right, there are two types of ways that we can go about bids. One is the design bid build method, which basically it's just you receive all the bids and the lowest qualified bidder wins. And then the second one is through the leaseback process, which you can find basically a general contractor partner in this. And that general contractor would then, you know, they kind of have their own subcontractors line up. Right. And in that way, you can kind of go a little bit more for, you know, the best value of all the different general contractors. But again, it really just matters for the complexity of the project. Sorry, that was quite a bit. I can simplify that down.
No. I might ask you questions later.
Please.
I'm still thinking of my questions.
Please.
Okay. Action item, I need a motion to approve moving forward with DTA for Measure P architectural services.
So moved.
What?
Were they asleep at the? I second. Oh.
Trustee Cuss,
At that
all in favor, say aye.
old.
Seeing as there are no nays,
He's sucking in.
item 19 is approved. We're getting there, hang in there.
Oh, you.
It's my turn. Did I go?
Next up is do I need to bring this guy? Next up, informational item, a Measure P Series A issuance and Measure I refunding final financing summary and annual debt policy update.
Thank you. This is purely an informational item. And again, another requirement that we are required to put by the board into the public. We have already gone through the issuance details. But once more, just, you know, so we cross this bridge once again is we approved the Measure P bond for $171 million in November. That was approved by voters. We then created a first tranche of projects and had that approved by the board in February, to which we were then able to go out for the first issuance. Superintendent DeGuara and I went into the city, met with Moody's, got a AAA rating, which is great for our community. In the first week of April, we were supposed to go out for the issuance of this, but unfortunately, due to the timing and the imposition of tariffs, the municipal bond market was not in a place where we could sell. We decided at that time to postpone it and basically wait it out. And very fortunately, in May, we were able to finally sell the first issuance of bonds. Ultimately, there are two parts of that. There was the Noter I refinancing, which saved our taxpayers approximately $750,000. And in the process of moving our issuance from April to May, we saved our taxpayers roughly $3 million over the life of the bond. So ultimately, I'd like to thank Superintendent DeGuara for, being lockstep with me every step of the way through this. And I would also like to thank the board for, continuing to see the permanence of moving forward quickly with all of this. Because without that flexibility that we gained by, having as much time as possible to go onto the market, we never would have been able to, wait it out, be patient, and get as good of a rate that we were able to get at the end of the day. So
Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah, good work.
first, happy to do it. That's it for this informational item.
Questions? All right, information was received. Item number 21, future board meeting agenda items.
Yes, so we're showing two meetings in August. One is our regular meeting, August 21st. Our second meeting is August 28th, which is a board retreat. I will note that both of these meetings are going to be at the San Mateo County Office of Education. This building will be getting ready to be under construction. Not sure what this room will actually look like. We won't have started yet, but perhaps some moving and whatnot. So we're just going to get started for the school year at the Office of Education. In terms of tentative agenda items, do some tech update. Ed Services will give their summer school student assessment report, the data that we have from spring assessments, as well as what took place over summer. We'll do something with our strategic plan, probably a brief overview and likely next steps that we'll conquer next year. It will be the first read of CSBA policy updates that came out or are coming out this month, hopefully. We're still waiting for them. And a construction update. We'll let you know where we are, when exactly ground will be broken, and all those good things. For the retreat, we have three agenda items that we're kind of circulating right now. Always open for more board input or direction. We do have English language arts, just kind of a comprehensive kind of overview of what we do, how we're supporting that curriculum right now. We have facilities master plan. There are some probably some needed adjustments we need to talk about on our tranche 1 items and looking at costs. And then finally, making sure we carve out some time to do work as a board and develop our governance mindsets.
Awesome. Any questions on agenda items? Beautiful. We are not reconvening to close. So calling this meeting closed at 8:32 p.m.